Hey everyone, Ben Stanton here. I'm just wanting to share a little bit about actually the little microgrid system at my place. I'm connected to the grid, got battery backup system. It's a multi plus 48 10,000 and Freedom One batteries. It's got solar. I will show you a little bit of a diagram, but I've also added some solar onto the shed, which is up the way, and didn't want to run the PV back. So I've AC coupled it and I've used a Victron system. And there's a couple of small problems that I just wanted to talk about, that have come up, and how I think I fixed them. I'm not sure if I have fixed them yet or not. But let me share the screen with you, pop it onto there, and then I'll just show you this. So I should be sharing. I guess I'm sharing the screen. I better check. Um, yep, sharing screen number 2. So yeah. So what happens is this is the current system that I've got at home. I haven't put the PV in. I've got a PV charger on this as well. I've got a little bit of AC coupled at home as well, but we've got the grid coming in, grid protection, the multi-plus 48 10,000, couple of batteries, and a switchboard. I haven't done any detail on this at all, just to show you. So I'm adding some gear onto the system and some PV on the shed, and that's what that looks like. Okay, so I've got the power going out to the shed. It's already existing power cable. It's got a multi-plus 248 3000 because that's what I had lying around. And an RS450 100. Now, clearly, there's a bit of a mismatch there, right? That's capable of 5 kilowatts. I've got 5 kilowatts of PV on it, and it's coming into a 3 kilowatt multi-plus 2, which can really only do about 2.5 kilowatts, 2.4 of export continuously anyway. And a battery in the middle of that. It's not actually a Freedom One, it's a different battery. But what I've got here is I've chucked some Node Red on. Before I talk about that, there's two issues. One is that when the battery goes dead flat, what happens is obviously the Victron stops exporting. But the problem with that is the next day it seems to not want to start exporting again. So the battery just charges up and it doesn't export to the grid. I don't know why that is. It could be a firmware update required. I don't know. I haven't really looked into that, but each morning I've been basically just rebooting it and starting again. Don't want to do that. So basically what I wanted to do is ramp the export back as the battery got flat, instead of the inverter turning itself off, not really turning it off, but stopping export and going to a low battery mode. I want to catch it before that. So I'm using Node Red to catch that before that, and also using Node Red as soon as the battery starts charging. I'm from the solar, I'm ramping the export up based on battery voltage. So that's what the cool thing is, that if I ramp the system up based on battery voltage, it's going to keep the battery at a low voltage rate until the solar gets up, and the solar will actually produce 5 kilowatts, no problem. But the multiplus will be exporting 2.5 or 2.6 kilowatts, whatever it's capable of exporting, full noise, well and truly before the battery's full. So what that means is I'm getting a lot of export, and I'm not just mirroring the solar and exporting that, and I'm not allowing the battery to get full before I start exporting. So what I'm using is the battery is using the battery as a buffer. So basically I can still get full noise on the solar, 5 kilowatts, and then but already be exporting. And so the battery takes up the extra. And then of course, when the sun goes down, which happens to be around about 4 or 5 o'clock, solar starts ramping back. At this time, the battery will then keep exporting until it runs down flat, and that will be good for the peak times during the day. So I'm now going to show you the setup. So See there, I've got my solar charger turned off. The battery is flat at the moment. It's down to 46 volts, as you can see here. This is the microgrid system, and I've just got the a second dashboard up with the remote console of the microgrid system, so you can see what is happening. Now, what I've actually done in Node Red, I will show you that now, is I've got this flow here. First flow is gathering information from the battery voltage. You can see there it's 46 volts. Double click on that, and I'm basically just going, hey, the Venus system, battery voltage, that's simple. Grabbing the battery voltage. I've got a little range. So this is called a range node, and that's in the middle here. So I'm going from 46 volts to 48 volts is the low, that's the lower voltage end of the battery. It's actually a 15S battery, so it can go to 46 volts, no problem. 15 cells, it can go to right down lower than that if I want to, but I don't want to hammer it too hard. And I'm mapping that range. When I'm at 46 volts, I'm mapping that to a 0. When I'm at 48 volts, I'm mapping it to negative 2,600. And I'll show you why. Because basically I'm pushing those figures into the grid set point, which is really simple. So it's the inverter, it's the ESS settings in the Venus device or the GX device, and I'm just mapping that to the grid set point. So I'll show you how that works. Go back to this setting here. I've turned the charge controller off, and if I turn that on now, you'll see the grid set point is at 0 because that's the battery voltage is at 46. And the grid set point's at 0. It's just hovering around -6 there. Oops, see the grid set point at -30. So it's dynamically changing as we go. So now if I turn this charge controller on, it's going to ramp up real quick to whatever. It's a bit overcast at the moment, so I'm not sure what the sun's doing outside there, but see, there you go, 5 kilowatts. We've got 2.5 going to the battery immediately, and you can see here the grid set point. See, this grid set point has changed immediately to 2.1 kilowatts export, and you can see there it's tracking quite nicely. Obviously, this let me see. Yeah, it looks like the remote console side of it has locked up. So I'm just going to reload that and come back into that remote console here. And we'll see that grid set point changing dynamically. Well, you can already see that it's happened there. Oh, we've got to reload. Okay, that's cool. Go into the remote console. Here we go. If I turn the charger off, you'll see that the battery will then start charging. Sorry, the battery will start discharging because the solar turns off. Now the connection's a little slow at the moment. Probably everything else we're doing, recording this. But you can see that the battery's now discharging. We're getting down to 46.9, and so we're going to see this export slow down and slow down. So the window where it really takes effect is between 46 and 48 volts, and I can just adjust that in Node Red. You can see there 46 volts. It's discharging. It's just going to slowly, smoothly ramp back instead of discharging right down and then the inverter just basically stopping the discharge bluntly, which then causes the battery voltage to spike, which can bring the inverter back in again, and then it will just jump up and down a bit. So this is a really nice, smooth way of discharging it. And then hopefully tomorrow morning, when that solar comes back in again and it starts charging, actually we could try that. I could just say put 20 amps of charge into it. It'll be about a kilowatt, somewhere around there. It'll ramp back. I don't know if we need this remote console, but I was just trying to bring that up to show how it would work. It's all running nice and slowly. Not sure why that's still hovering around 2 kilowatts. Let's go to 30 amps. This is just kind of simulating the sun coming up. You can see there it's found a nice level. So it's basically exporting everything that's coming out of the solar. Go to 30 amps, eh? Increase that a little bit, see what the solar does. Increase the solar will increase the battery voltage slightly, which will increase the export, which then will eventually balance out and just keep up with the solar until the battery voltage gets to 48, which is still pretty low. Increase that to say 50 amps. You can see there, this is taking a while to refresh, but you see there 2.3 kilowatts or thereabouts. And it's taking a little bit into the battery, which will lift the voltage up, which will then should eventually just even this out. This is probably getting a bit boring for you, but I thought it's a nice, very, very simple node-RED flow. Push it up to say 75 amps now, see what happens. Watch this. The other issue we have is that we have a very thin cable. It's a temporary setup, of course. I'm going to get a bigger cable wide back to the switchboard, but we've got a thin cable, so we've got quite a voltage rise here. So I've opened up the voltage limits on the country code, but you shouldn't really do that. But there's nothing else running except, so it's still within tolerances of the inverter and the cabling, but it's a high voltage. You wouldn't want to run an appliance on that or a home. But you can see there it's following quite nicely. We're now at 48 volts and we're exporting as much of the solar as we can. And we're now starting to capture some into the battery. So if I push this back to 50 amps again, we're going to see that battery voltage with less pressure, that battery voltage is going to climb back a little. And we'll have a look at what the remote console is doing, as if it's going to let us do that. But as that battery voltage falls back a little, and drop it down to 40 amps, we'll see the grid or the export back to the main system drop back. Not dropping back enough. 30. There we go. Now you can see this export dropping back again. It's a shame I can't open the remote console. There's too much going on, of course. It's just a small GX device, but can't open the remote console, obviously, because there's too much data happening. Perhaps if I just pop into somewhere else here. Yeah, I'll just go into there so it stops the real time. And then it might bring up the remote console a bit better. Anyway, I think you get the point. Oh, look at that. Now I'll jump into the remote console. Well, there's nothing live except for the charge controller. And just out of interest on the node red flow there, don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you can see the live battery voltage data coming through from the Venus system. So that's really handy for well, just seeing visual on a good visual on what's going on with the system. But let's have a look at this remote console, see if we can see anything. Strange, it's not doing it. Okay, never mind. Don't really want to put you all to sleep. Look at that, 47.4 volts. Here comes the remote console now. No. But if I now push this to 40 amps, what you'll see this export start to lift up as the solar lifts up. So it's kind of mimicking the solar up to the point that the inverter is capable. Then it's soaking the rest up in the battery. And then, of course, once the battery's full, there's nowhere else for it to go. So the solar will ramp back, unfortunately, and clip. But it's a good method of utilizing that battery to get as much out of the solar as what I possibly can. And really good on a semi-overcast day where you got cloud cover coming in and out, and you can just absolutely pump as much back out of the system as what we can. So I'll go to 60 amps now. And we'll start seeing this start to increase again. Too much going on, eh? Bit of a delay. It's hardly real time. Here we go. So we've got a bit more coming into the battery there as well. Okay, so you can see there the grid set point is probably going to take a while to sort of catch up, to refresh anyway. Yeah, there's a slight delay there, boys. A little bit slow today. There we go. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the charger off, watch the battery voltage drop back, and we should, if it was quick enough, we would see You can see it happening here as the battery voltage falls away. I'm going to pop it back to 100 amps because I think that's enough of a demonstration, but it's quite nice to see it actually all working in semi-real time. So look, I'm really still learning on all of this Node-RED. There's way better people on Node-RED than I am. I'm not even started. But it is fun to play with, and it's easy to deploy something as simple as just that little flow. The next thing I want to do is actually to be able to request energy from the battery that's on the shed when the battery in the house gets low. So I want to be able to match the two up. And you can do that by getting information from a different Victron system. But you can see there, it's really slow, but you can see there the grid set point is changing dynamically. It's just so slow. It's like painful. It's about a minute behind. It's what happens when you got too much stuff going on. But interesting, nonetheless. It's going to be whacked right up, and it's pushing out as much as it can. There we go. So it's at 3.98, and that's the requested grid set point, but obviously the inverter is tapping out at 2.4 kilowatts. But that's still cool because we've got 5 kilowatts still coming in from solar, which is awesome. Recharging that battery. And so the final little thing I wanted to show you, I know this is a long video, I'm sorry. But the final cool thing that I showed you that I tried before was when the solar turns off or it goes behind a cloud, if there's enough energy in the battery, it will still keep exporting that to the main system and still keep dumping that battery to the main system. So you can set up microgrids like this very easily. That is probably the topic for another video, I think. Or there you go. You can see the solar ramping back now. Oh, and up. So it's a bit cloudy out there. If I turn that solar off, we're going to see the battery start discharging now and still supporting that export. There we go. The export limit will come down a bit. That was actually something that happened at the grid. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's picking up again. I just heard my inverter here next to me, which is in the home where I am. Just went rub, rub, rub. And so something happened with the grid there. Let me see if we're actually still on grid. I'll go to the Node-RED. I'll go to my system and see if it's still connected to the grid. Yep, still connected. So this PV inverter, just by the way, is actually, I'll show you, that's just using an energy meter. So that's using an energy meter that's measuring what's coming in from the shed. And you can see there it's dropping back, and that will be because of this. See, this is now requesting less, 1480. It's probably less by now, but it's taking a while to catch up. So the actual grid export is less, and that's because the battery voltage is wound down. Turn the solar back on, and it will all come back up. Zoom further down, taking a while to update. Yeah, there we go. We're back in action. Yep. Go back to my place, and there we go. 5, 2.8. Just so you know, I actually, that reading is different from the 2.4. Obviously, we got so we got 2.9 there because I've got a few panels on microinverters as well on that shed. So that reading is actually measuring some of those as well. Wonderful. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. And if not, then you can thank me for being able to put you to sleep. Anyway, God bless and see you on the next one. Sweet. Bye.